as you just support underneath his booty, you can give him nice slow pets down his back. And sometimes it's a little bit easier if you kind of relax back into the chair just a little bit. So you can just relax backwards to where, so where he's going to be leaning back on you just a little bit more rather than leaning forwards with him. That way he feels just a little bit more stable.
So, like a little bit on there you go, Princess. Just lean back. There you go. There you go. I can tell you're nervous. It's okay.
Let your booty go to the front of the chair. You know, like how you get in trouble in school for slouching? Yeah. And just kind of slouch. There you go.
There you go.
Like you're watching a good movie, and that's just your bucket of popcorn. There you go.
He just wants to give you cuddles. What do you think about that?
His nose looks so smooth. It is, yep. And most of the time it's kind of wet too because they do have pretty high humidity requirements. So a lot of the times it's pretty moist there on the tip of their nose. Where are you guys coming from?
We live in Florida, and this is my niece Abigail, and she lives in Georgia.
Okay, cool. Where'd you guys hear about us?
I was doing some research because we were in Gatlinburg for my son's karate tournament, and we love animals so much. And so I wanted some animal encounters for him. And so I just did a research around the area, and the farm came up, and we looked at a bunch of other places, but this one just seemed very family-oriented, and also the Christian base was very effective to me.
Yeah.
So, and then everyone from the moment when I texted or emailed were so friendly because I wasn't sure, like, would the scooter be able to come? Yeah, so.
Yeah. Sure. Yep.
Heard about them online, but.
Oh, cool.
It's like holding a baby.
It is.
The fuzzy baby.
You just exploring
around.
down
there. Is he sticking his tongue out at you?
Sometimes I think he forgets how long his tongue actually is because he leaves it sticking halfway out like that all the time.
Jake, you do me a favor? Yeah. Take Mommy's camera and take a picture, like up. So, like, looking down at Miss Abby and him, you can stick my wallet right here in my basket. Okay? Here you go. Take a picture of him like that, okay? Yeah. Oh, I think he likes you a little.
He's just thinking that you're a branch, so that's how they naturally hold on.
Ah. Now, how old did you say he is?
He's about 10 months old. Oh. Well, closer to 11 months now.
Oh, he's so baby. Just a baby.
So we've had Dash ever since he was about 5 months old. And if you were to try to have a similar encounter as this with a sloth that was taken from the wild, it would be completely different. It would essentially be the difference between holding a house cat and a feral cat. If you were to try to take a sloth like that from the rainforest, it would be a completely different interaction that you would have.
I got my younger sister because it was her just dream to hold a sloth. So for Christmas this past year, I got her an encounter in Florida to hold a sloth. It was a grown sloth. Is it yanking you a little bit? He bit you?
So they do have really poor eyesight, and so you have to keep that in mind. If they start to go to mouth on you or anything, you do need to move your hand away because they're just looking for food.
Oh, okay. So he just doesn't. He thought you smelled taste.
Yeah.
So she held a bigger sloth and got to feed on some corn. But it was quite different from how she explained it. Because she said, like, that they won't lay on you like that. Yeah. It's like they very much like lean far, far back away from you.
Yeah. So Dash went through a lot of conditioning from a very young age to get him to the point where he does enjoy this type of interaction. Yeah. They aren't naturally born wanting to be holding on to people like this. That is something that's, instilled into them from a young age. And so there's conditioning that they went through from the time they were just like 3 or 4 days old. The mothers that were actually clicker trained in the program to know that when the breeder came up and made that clicker noise, that they were going to get just a little treat. Okay. And then the baby was actually going to be just borrowed by that breeder for like 10 or 15 seconds. and then given right back to the mom.
Okay, so the mom knew that it was
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, and so mom's never stressed out because baby's never really taken away. She's still always right there next to the mom.
Yeah.
And then mom never stressed out because baby's never stressed.
That was one of my questions, because you just wonder, like, with the babies, like, how the mamas feel.
Yep. And so a lot of people think too, like, there's a big stigmatism behind like dairy cows and stuff like that, for where the babies are taken and then they use the mothers for milk and stuff like that. A lot of people feel really bad for the moms and stuff like that, when that's really just their way of life. That's how they live. That's what their routine is. And the sloths especially, they don't, when you think about a sloth, the connection that they have with their babies is very unlike any other type of mammal. So other mammals the babies will spend a lot of time with the mothers. Even after they're weaned, they'll still stick around the mothers. But sloths are not like that whatsoever. So once the mother is not producing any more milk and that baby has learned all that it needs to from that mom, then they will just separate and they'll never even see each other again. And they have no issue with that. They do that in the wild as well. It's not always that the mother will wean the baby. Occasionally the baby will wean itself.
Yeah.
And just leave the mother.
What do you think about him, Abby? You like him?
Yeah, he has a little, like,
Yeah.
A little less scary now?
And you can see how tiny those pupils are. They are just little pinpoint little pupils. And they stay really small like that all the time. They have a really, really narrow field of vision. So they don't really see something until it's like right in front of their face. And then they do have a condition in their eyes. It's called rod monochromacy. That means that they only have rod cells in their eyes and no cone cells. So we have cone cells in the back of our eyes that allows us to see color. But since they lack those cells, they are colorblind. And then what they do see is not just in black and white. It's basically just blobs and shapes that they see. They can't really distinguish what's what or who's who. So he can see my figure sitting over here. But if I weren't saying anything, he would not know that it was me. But he knows my voice and he hears my voice every day, so he knows who I am by that.
Does he feel more attached to you because he's used to being around here?
They
every
do,
day?
yeah. And they kind of pick their people too. So he really does enjoy John as well, the owner.
Okay.
So every evening he stays up at the main house in the night and through the nights. And so in the evenings, John will always get him out and hold him while they're watching TV, and just he always has that bonding time with him. And Zoe did the same thing with Donna, John's wife. When they first got Zoe, she was their first baby sloth. And so with any first baby, anything, you want to do everything just right. And so she really attached herself onto Donna because Donna was the one that held her a lot throughout the day. So she does all of the bookings and virtual sides of things, basically.
Give me a big smile, Abby.
Making sure that we stay up and running from the computer. And so she's on the computer all the time, and she would hold Zoe all the time while she was working. So she got so attached to Donna that Donna can't really come down here and do encounters like this with Zoe anymore, because if she does, and Zoe hears her talking and she's not the one that's holding her, then she's trying desperately to get to Donna and could care less about the person that she's holding on to. So
and it's just their natural tendency to like kind of curve back a little bit when someone's holding them.
You good?
Yeah, so Dash, he's really ADHD. Any type of movement that's back behind him, he wants to see it. He doesn't want to miss anything. And so that's why when I do his encounters, I always stay back here on the counter, because otherwise he is looking around for me and looking to see if I'm moving and stuff.
Just as precious as can be.
He makes a lot of noises when he opens his mouth.
Yep. So actually, when they open and close their mouth, every time that they do that, their teeth grind together just right to be able to keep those teeth sharpened. And they do that every time that they open and close their mouths. So you can almost hear like a little squeak every time that they close their mouths.
So if you don't have people booking encounters, do you find that they miss like the connection, like being held?
They very much do. They're very routine animals, and so they all have their set schedules throughout the day where they know that they're supposed to have people coming in to encounter with them. And so this morning, Zoe didn't have any encounters, and so she was kind of, we did Flash's encounter, and then afterwards, usually the routine is that we'll do Flash, and then right afterwards, those people will go in to see Zoe, but they just booked to see Flash. And so then afterwards, she was like kind of on edge, looking over the side of her hammock, like,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So then she started like climbing around in her enclosure, like trying to get me to open up the door and go in there. And she, you know, she had her morning thrown off just a little bit. And so I ended up just going in there and spending time with her and held her just to kind of keep her on her schedule.
Yeah, because I would imagine,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I know there were, you know.
So don't poke the nose up around the head like that. No, don't do anything. Any type of movements up towards the eyes, around the eyes. That's really startling to them.
Closer towards the back.
Yeah, that's okay. Just like pokes on the nose and things moving around up in front of their faces is really scary to them, and so we don't want to provoke them to try to bite or anything.
Chihuahuas does not like people. Like she'll let Jacob and I touch her face, but she don't want anyone else their hands coming towards her face.
Yeah.
So we just always warn people because she's sweet as can be, or like she just doesn't like you. It scares her. So.
Yeah. And it's the same thing for them because since they can't see very well at all, and all of a sudden something comes into their face. Exactly. And they are. I can't say certain words when I'm on a live, but they're animals that are, you know, things are after them. You know, the word for that, but I just can't say it because we're on a live. Because you know, animals like that where they know that they're at the bottom of the food chain and other things are after them, they tend to be a lot more, you know, scared by movements and stuff like that. And so for a sloth, anything that's coming towards a sloth at any rate of speed is startling to a sloth, and they don't want to deal with it. So their kind of first line of defense is just get away from it. In the wild, if they're out on the branch of a tree and something is coming at them from the, you know, the trunk of that tree, then they just want to get to the very end of that branch away from whatever it is. And so a lot of times what happens, they'll go out on the very end of that branch, and if it is a jaguar or an ocelot or some type of a creature that's out to get them and cause them harm, then it's kind of best case scenario for the sloth if they were to both get to the very end of that branch and that branch actually break, because they would both go falling to the floor. And if that's the case, the sloth would almost certainly survive that fall, and the cat or whatever it is that's after them is probably not going to, because a sloth is actually built to survive a fall from up to 100 feet in the air and be completely unharmed. So when they fall, they kind of just go spread eagle and all four limbs go out and they kind of fall like a pancake. And so they don't really sustain any type of damage because their bones are extremely pliable. Okay. So when they do hit the ground, everything just kind of flexes and then goes back to normal with their rib cage. And they actually have a total of 46 ribs. So it's double what we have. And those ribs go all the way down right up against their hip bones, basically. So it's kind of protective, you know, protective casing for them, a protective shell around their organs. And there's also a lot of connective tissue that's holding all of their organs together right where they're supposed to in the middle of their body cavity. So when they do hit the ground, they don't really sustain any type of internal damage. It all just stays where it's supposed to. Yeah. And on average, the sloths do actually fall out of the tree that they stay in about once a week. They are very clumsy animals, and since they do have really poor eyesight, sometimes what happens is that they'll be reaching for that next branch, and they'll actually grab their own leg. Sometimes that happens, and they'll go tumbling down.
Their eyesight being so poor, do they have trouble finding it back to home?
Not necessarily. You know, when they fall out of that tree, they pretty much know what the base of their tree looks like, because once a week, every week, they always come down to the base of that tree. Not because they fall, but because they're going to the bathroom. So they know what the base of that tree looks like. They do. About every 7 to 10 days is how often a sloth goes to the bathroom.
That's pretty impressive.
Yep. And they don't ever go up in the tops of the tree. They wait till they come down to the base of the tree to do that. And that's because in the wild, they do have a symbiotic relationship with moths that are living on their backs that require the sloth to go down to the base of the tree to go to the bathroom. And they need that sloth to go to the same pile every single time. And that's because when the sloth comes down to use the bathroom, they kind of wiggle their little booty around on the ground, and that signals those moths to come down and lay their eggs. The moths will lay their eggs in the dung pile of the sloth before catching their ride back up into the canopy of the rainforest. A week later, when the sloth comes back to that same pile, then those eggs have now turned into larvae, and last week's larvae have now turned into moths, and those moths will crawl up onto the sloth. So those moths are really weird in the fact that they can only live on the back of the sloth. They cannot live in any other environment. They can't even fly up from the rainforest floor to find the sloth. They require direct contact.
That's so cool.
And and it's all very well designed, because if the sloths did not have the moths, or the moths did not have the sloths, neither would be able to survive without the other one. And so it's very specific and very well designed, and still after all of that, people will say that there's a thing as evolution.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
so they
definitely makes you wonder.
Yeah, sometimes common sense is the best way to go rather than trying to come up with a lot of different philosophies and explanations for why things are the way that they are. Everything points.
Explanations measure up. They just don't.
Yeah, everything points towards that there is a creator of the universe. But obviously, that relationship benefits the moths because the sloth goes to the same pile every time. But it also benefits the sloths. So the sloths will eat a portion of those moths that are on their back, and that's their protein source. But the most important part of the entire relationship is actually that the sloths will lick up a portion of the moth's waste, and it's the waste of that moth is where the sloth gets the bacteria in order to digest its food. And so if they didn't have that, they would not be able to digest their food in the wild. So they get the first they're not born with that bacteria. They have to get it from somewhere, and that's actually around day 3 of the sloth's life. They start to be realizing what mom's doing, what she's eating, and is kind of interested in that. And so the baby will crawl onto the chest of the mother and actually lick her in the corners of her mouth, because when she eats, her saliva will mix with those leaves and kind of bubble up in the corners of her mouth. And when the baby smells that, they're like, what's mom eating? And we'll kind of lick her there. And so then baby will get just a little bit of mom's bacteria colony to then start to develop its own bacteria colony. And in captivity, that's done the same way through mom, and it just takes it a little bit longer to be established because bacteria does what bacteria does. It's slowly going to start to, germinate and make it a bigger colony than what it was before. But in the wild, they get just a little bit from mom, and then all of the moths that are on mom's back are also on the baby. So then the baby will start to, lick up some more of that waste, and it'll be established a lot quicker. But in the wild, they need those moths because temperature is always fluctuating in the rainforest. And if it drops much below what that bacteria requires to be able to thrive, some of that bacteria that's in their gut can be destroyed. Wow. But it's not an issue for a wild sloth because they just lick up some more of the waste on their backs and it's reestablished. But in captivity, once they establish that bacteria colony, it has to be kept at a 78 degrees temperature year round all the time. Because if it were to drop and that bacteria were to be destroyed, there's not a way for those sloths then to get more of that bacteria because they don't make any form of a synthetic form of bacteria.
Don't eat your fingers.
So the legs are also kind of a really sensitive area for sloths because sloths are on the bottom side of a branch. They're holding onto that branch and they're down low. And if there's a jaguar or ocelot or something like that that's trying to get a hold of that sloth, the first thing they're going to grab onto is a leg. And so if we're touching their legs and things like that, that can be starting to get kind of, nervous for them. So we try to stay away from the legs unless we're trying to get them to loosen up. Then we just really slide our finger up underneath the paw pad. Because that, to them, that's a lot more natural than something, rubbing on their leg.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But a lot of people kind of wonder how they're able to hold on to the branches for such long periods of time. And because for us, that would be really difficult to do, holding on to a branch and all of our body weight, extended from that. Because that for us is a stressful state. We're using muscles and energy to do that. Whereas this is a relaxed state. But for them, clamp down around the branch is their relaxed state and actually have to extend that claw out and reach for the next branch. That's what's more stressful. So that's why when they're holding on to you, those claws are wrapped around your torso because that's just their relaxed state. They're not using any energy to do that. And that's how sloths are able to just hang upside down all the time and never get tired.
Comfortable with you. That's why he's holding on.
Yep. It has been about 20 minutes if you guys wanted to switch.
You ready?
So you won't have to do anything. Once he realizes that I'm coming over here, he's going to just grab onto my arm.
Let me go.
All right. So he'll do the same thing. He'll wrap his legs around your torso first, and then you can support him underneath his booty. Here we go. Let's check this camera angle here. I always have to stay real still when I do his encounters because otherwise he's following me everywhere, looking at where I'm moving and what I'm doing. I remembered to move the angle this time. Are you proud of me? A lot of times I'm really bad about I'll transfer him over onto somebody else and then the camera will still be pointed at the other person because I forget about it.
But it's, the mic sounds awesome. We can, everybody says that you sound a lot better.
Oh, good.
You can hear what you're saying. Good. Don't worry, you guys aren't mic'd up.
No. But you can see the darkest spot on the top of his head there is the color that he was all over when we first got him, when he was about 5 months old. When they're first born, they're pretty dark like that, and they blend into the chest of the mother a lot more easily rather than if they were born a really light color, because they're not born with that moss and algae that they start to develop on them over time. For camouflage, they have to develop that, and so they need a way to kind of be hidden, camouflaged into the mom. And that's why they're that darker color. But as they get older, their hair, well, he's gonna, yeah. He says, food?
That is not food.
Well, you just look like a little snack. You have to taste Abby. Now he's got to taste you.
You're just tasting everybody.
So we only have the two-toed sloths here in captivity. There are three-toed sloths in the world as well, but they're pretty difficult to keep in captivity. See if I can find some snacks in here.
Oh, you see her moving.
I know, bud. I think my snacks are actually out here. I'm going to grab these little snacks that are out here. I'm going to be right back in.
Uh-oh. Oh, what does she have?
Look here. Look here, bud. Want that? What do you think? No? Because I'm thinking maybe. We'll keep it on standby. So this mixture here is a mixture of brown rice, shaved up sweet potatoes, and a really high quality dog food that's been soaked in water and then mixed into it. And that's where they get their protein from until they're about 2 years old. They slowly start to transition onto more veggies and things like that. And then we put them on 2 hard-boiled eggs a week, and that's their protein source. And then they'll get a mixture of other veggies and things like that. In the wild, their diet is about 95% leaf material. And so in captivity, we try to keep it as close to that as possible, but it's about 75% leaf material in captivity. But I started to say that we have the two-toed sloths here, but there are three-toed sloths as well.
Where are you going?
Does that arm just look so yummy?
Arms are not snacks. You had your snacks. We chose not to eat.
So traditionally, when you picture a sloth in your mind, most people see the sloth that has like that kind of darker brown band across their eyes, and they look like they're smiling. And kind of a famous picture of the three-toed sloths is that they'll be holding all 4 feet onto that branch, and the camera, the picture will be taken back behind them, and they actually have their head rotated all the way back, looking behind them at the camera. And that's because the three-toed sloths actually have 3 extra vertebrae in their cervical spine that allows them to do that. They can't rotate their neck all the way around like an owl can, but they can rotate it all the way back to look back behind them. Whereas Dash can really just, bend his neck back to look back like that. But the two-toed sloths, where they lack that vertebrae in their cervical spine, they have it in their lumbar spine. So they have the ability to kind of extend down by just holding on by their 2 back feet. They'll extend all the way down, and then they can rotate their spine. I can go about halfway, but they can go all the way back behind them to look back behind that way. And then the three-toed sloths also have just a little bit of a tail, and that is what allows them to get even more moths up on them, because the moths require that direct contact. And so it's a lot more easily for those moths to crawl up onto the three-toed sloth, because they use that tail to kind of swirl around down there to pick some more of those up. Do you guys have any other encounters today, or was this?
We
Got it.
already did a bunch. So
Mhm.
before my niece and her family got here, we did the Highland cows,
Mhm.
and then we did the llamas and the goats,
Mhm.
and then we did the baby kangaroos. That's, they've got my heart. Those little baby
Yes,
kangaroos.
yes, they're very sweet.
And then we did the tour with the family, and
Yeah.
then we did the fennec fox with the family.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question.
Mhm.
What's the kangaroo's name?
So it's Phoebe and Rachel. The bigger one is Rachel, and the smaller one is Phoebe.
Is there two?
Yeah, in the second bag there.
She's
Yeah.
in this other pouch here. You can't see her.
Yeah.
She's in that other pouch.
She's just a lot smaller. There's only about a month difference between the two.
Which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Phoebe, oh my gosh, she was just such a little snuggle bunny. I didn't want to give her back.
Yep. She is a very sweet girl.
And my mom was thinking, how can I fit this baby kangaroo in my basket? Nobody can notice.
But they all had eyes on me.
Yep.
They knew. They were like, keep eyes on this thing.
I know what you're trying to do. You're not funny.
What's he trying to do?
Yeah, I know what he's trying to do. He keeps trying to investigate my arms.
He says, they just look so tasty. So kind of the idea behind offering the sloth encounters here, where we know where they've been ethically bred for this type of interaction in an appropriate situation, is that people will be able to come here and have this experience and get enough information about sloths and about actually the wild sloths down in Central and South America, where they'll know about the practices that go on down there. So the Conservancy Agency in recent months, even just within the past year, have really been doing a lot better job at cracking down and putting some rules and regulations in against, holding wild sloths, because down there that is a real issue that they face. I think there must be another smell or something back there that he is going for, because I'm not sure.
Well, he keeps going back there.
He played with so many animals, he's probably smelled
maybe
all sorts
so.
of things.
They are pretty exploratory sometimes.
Like, he keeps leaning over to this side like he sees something or smells something back there.
Yeah. But
it's just my size.
So a lot of times what people would do is that they would kind of get the routine of when they know the cruise ships are going to be coming to board, and the natives will go out the day before and they'll go on a sloth hunt, and they will try to find a young sloth, even if it's a baby, off the back of the mother, and they'll take that animal and they'll dunk it in a bucket of bleach to get all of the moss and grossness off of them, pull their teeth, and then set them in a roadside petting zoo. And people are not aware of the practices that go on to those animals before they go and interact with them, because obviously they don't present it as that. They present it like he's my pet, or I've had him for years, or the mother was injured and so I had to take the baby, or something like that. And they just don't know any better, because they're just, that's what they're told. But in reality, those sloths have a life expectancy of about 2.5 weeks, because after all of that moth and everything are taken off of their backs, they don't have a way to digest their food, and they can pass away from starvation with a full belly of food, just not able to digest it. So it's really unfortunate what was happening down there to those sloths, and people are just unaware of that, because obviously if you knew those type of practices were happening, you would not be supporting something like that.
That's a very important takeaway. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we do like to cruise a lot, and we're actually going on a Thanksgiving cruise this year, and we are going down that way, and like I wouldn't have known.
Exactly.
And what a heartbreaking thing to be a part of and just not realize it.
And that's actually what happens to a lot of people, and it's not until they get back and maybe months to years later realize, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that's what was going on. But so that's kind of our whole premise behind offering these type of encounters,
especially when you love animals so much and you just want to help them. Like to unknowingly do harm to them is very unfortunate.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, probably their thought process behind it is that if they go down there where they're native to, then it's a surefire way to ensure those sloths have not been taken.
Honey, are your eyes bothering you?
I don't know.
Do you need to go out to mommy and daddy and maybe rinse them out? Okay.
But I think probably people's thought process is, if I go down somewhere that they're native to and encounter with them down there, that I know they've not been like taken far away from their natural habitat. But in reality, there's still, it would kind of be like, raccoons are native to this area.
Yeah.
They should be able to live in this area. But if I went out and started to, take raccoons and keep them inside here, they're still in their natural, element. Like this Tennessee is where they live, but I still have them in captivity. And it's kind of what's going on down there. A lot of times what places will do is that they'll take sloths and put them in a sanctuary where it's like 2 or 3 little trees all to themselves and there's nowhere else. And they'll say, well, these sloths were born and raised here and they've been here their whole lives, when in reality they just go, about every 3-4 weeks after the old ones pass away, go out and get a new one and bring it in. And so that's a lot of times what happens down there. Now, there are some places that have done it the right way, where actually they are sanctuaries. They've been trying to rehabilitate sloths, and the ones that could not be rehabilitated stay in their program. And they have it to where, they make sure that they're keeping that good bacteria growth on their back and everything. And it's a good, safe place for them. And sometimes sanctuaries like that will have where people can come and just observe but not touch. And places like that are completely fine. And that's actually what started the breeding program for where Dash and Zoe came from. His breeder and Zoe's breeder is a veterinarian. And over 30 years ago, what he was doing down in Costa Rica was trying to rehabilitate some sloths that had been electrocuted. A lot of times what happens is that they're trying to cross a road through a telephone pole or a telephone wire, and they're going to reach over. It's fine as long as they're on one, but as soon as they reach over and complete that circuit, that's when they're shocked. And so they were trying to rehabilitate those animals that had went through that. The ones that could not be rehabilitated, that their injuries were significant enough where they could not be released back out into the wild, as what started his breeding program. So that was over 30 years ago. And then since then, he's had generations upon generations upon generations born and raised in captivity for this type of interaction, so they can be ambassador animals and serve to be education for the public. So,
which is good. He's so cute. Yes, just so cute.
He's a little face.
I know. He makes the cutest faces. Do you like the faces he makes, Abby? Here. You guys stay pretty busy?
In the summer, especially, we stay pretty much fully booked up. And the sloths are kind of the highlight of the place, too. So, we stay pretty booked up with them. I think our future plans here in the next few months, the sloths stay at the main house for the first year of their life, just for more observation, and in the evenings be able to make sure they get their food through the evenings and everything. And they're in a smaller enclosure up there where they're safer if they were to take a tumble or something like that. So they stay up there, but he's right at about the age that we're going to slowly start conditioning to him being down here. And so he's got a decent sized bird cage that we're slowly transitioning him into being an enclosure where he's not in a basket. So right now the enclosure that he has up at the house is a basket. We set the whole basket into his enclosure, and it's a big bird cage that he can climb around in. But most of the time he stays in that basket. And that's what, they're very spoiled when they're raised like this, because they're used to being held by people, and that's where they would rather be. So they're not really holding on to branches like the other sloths are. And so they're very spoiled little babies, and we're slowly transitioning him to being down here so that eventually we can end up putting both him and Zoe together. They came from the same program. They have completely different bloodlines, but we could. We don't have any plans right now for definite, that's what we're wanting to do, or, for future years, but we're just taking it one day at a time and slowly gonna,
It's not in the plans, but you haven't ruled it
exactly.
out.
Now we should, within the next month or so, be getting our 4th and final sloth, and she will be coming from the same breeder that we got them from. Our original plan was to we had Flash, then we got Zoe, and we wanted to get one more little girl, but Dash came along, and the breeder contacted us and was like, I know you're really looking for a girl. I don't have a girl ready, but I have this really sweet little boy, and he has all of these great characteristics, and I think that he would be a great fit for you guys with how many encounters you do, and how much education that you do and everything. So we ended up getting Dash, and we were like, well, we'll get Dash, but we still want our girl. And so we're still waiting on Chloe. And we thought that we were going to get her about a month ago. But what happened was that was a different sloth. And once she was weaned, she went through the same conditioning and training and everything as the other two babies did. But she kind of slowly started to show signs that she would tolerate being held, but she didn't actively seek it out like Dash does. And so to be able to come to a facility like this and be an ambassador animal where you hold them a lot, they have to meet two requirements. They have to genuinely enjoy and actively seek out human interaction. And while she would enjoy it, she, hold on to you and everything, she wouldn't come flying through the room at you trying to get you to pick her up like Zoe does. So if I walk into Zoe's enclosure, even just to clean up on the floor, she's climbing through the branches at me going, meh, meh, trying to get me to pick her up. And she does that quite often.
That's important. It tells us that you guys don't force the animals to do things.
Yeah. And a lot of places will have their sloth encounters booked back to back to back, or no appointment necessary sloth encounters, or drop-in sloth encounters. You really have to do some research on places like that, because if they're booked for the entire day, how much do those sloths actually get time to be able to do what they want to do? And so if Dash was fully booked for his entire day, he would have 2 hours of encounter total throughout the entire 12-hour day that we're here. So he would have from 12 to 1. He could have a full hour, so you guys have him from 12 to 1 today, and then he's done for the rest of the day. He doesn't have any other encounters. But even if he did, and even if Zoe, when she's fully booked for a day, she'll have encounter from 10:30 to 11:30, a break until 2 o'clock, then she'll go from 2 to 3. And then around 4 o'clock, when I start cleaning up their enclosures and stuff, I could go in there, not be paying attention to her whatsoever, and just doing my job, and she's still trying to get me to pick her up climbing through those branches. So it's still at a point where it's very enjoyable for them, and that's what they would like to do.
What if he started showing signs to you that he was overstimulated?
Then we would end the encounter, definitely. Yeah. And that's always what we tell people, is that obviously human safety is their number one concern. If Dash was doing something where he was trying to bite somebody for absolutely no reason, that person was not doing anything to provoke it, we would end that encounter, and that would be no fault of your guys' at all. And we would have to reconsider whether or not that animal needs to stay on the farm if they're going to be just completely unprovoked, trying to be aggressive. But animal comfort is our number two. And so if the opposite was happening, where I've told somebody they don't like to be touched here, they don't really like it this way or that way, and they completely ignore that and are still continuing to do that, and I can tell that the animal is getting stressed out, then that encounter will end, and they won't get another option to hold another animal, because that's always what we look out for, is making sure that you guys are safe, you guys are happy, but the animals are happy as well. So they can't advocate for themselves. They can't tell us whether or not they're comfortable with a situation, or if they're scared or anything like that. So it's always our job to just let everybody know of anything like that. But Dash always loves these type of encounters and loves spending time with people.
Yeah, you can tell he's very relaxed.
Yes, he loves it. And if he wasn't relaxed, you'd know. Sloths, you think that sloths are really slow, docile, gentle animals, but if they're scared or if they're not happy with a situation, they'll let you know about it. They do have sharp teeth in the very back of their mouth, and they can use them if they're, scared or anything like that. Now, the mouthing that he does a lot of times in the front there, he's kind of like a 2-year-old. 2-year-olds explore a lot with their mouths. So they kind of start to gum on you and try to figure out what you're doing or what you are. And that's basically the extent that he does using his mouth.
Did Damien ever bite you, Abby? No, he never bit you. I was going to say, he's just like, give me a little taste.
Yeah.
That's all.
I remember when Damien used to climb on the TV when he was a baby.
Yes.
That was scary. Watching my little baby cousin, who's still in a diaper, climb under the TV stand and grab the top of it. And just
he was very adventurous.
Yeah.
He was super adventurous.
Yeah.
They're watching you on YouTube out there now.
Oh, that's funny.
I let them know.
Oh, did they just turn it on?
They did. I just told them, I was like, you guys can watch, by the way.
When Abby, would you hold him again so Mommy and Daddy can see you holding him? Is that okay? It doesn't have to be for long.
It's okay.
That's
Well,
okay.
if we do transfer over, the last transfer that we do will be the last person that gets to hold them. So would you like to be able to hold, or were you just going to have them hold? Because
I'm all right.
Yeah.
If she holds him again, so her Mommy.
Okay. And I can, after we're done, I can bring him over. You can pet him. But the transferring is the most stressful part for them, because that's when they're kind of midair in the middle of being transferred over. They're obviously really content and comfortable when they're holding onto somebody, but just the transferring process where I have to open up his legs.
Yeah. I'll pet him a little bit, but if not, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to see them having
good.
fun.
All right.
But I thought since you show them the YouTube, then her mom and dad could see
yeah,
the whole.
good, yeah.
And they'll be able to go back and watch that live. It takes a little bit for it to upload, but if they go back and watch the one that started like around noon, they'll be able to see
awesome.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
You're so cute.
We've got about 10 minutes left, so did you guys want to transfer one last time?
So you can hold it for the last 10 minutes.
You're human.
He's like, yes, I love you. He just holds on.
Do you guys want to switch chairs? That way she can slouch?
Yeah,
I think that
it might be a little bit more
comfortable. Once you sit in this chair, it'll be a little bit easier for you to slouch. Never thought I'd say that like
yeah.
Alrighty.
Alright, get your sloth pedals.
And just support underneath his booty. And Bud, you gotta sit still over here. He's very ADHD. Any type of movement, he's got to see what's going on.
He is so cute. Yes, he is.
They do have little ears, believe it or not, on both sides of their heads. They're just covered by hair. So you can kind of feel real slow if you go down the sides of their head that they do have little fully formed ears. And they're not like little holes in the sides of their head like chickens. They do have little ears that come out. I couldn't imagine what they would look like if they didn't have the hair covering them. Just these little ears sticking out by the sides.
Little toes kind of like raptor claws.
Yep. With the two in the front, they definitely do. And then the three-toed sloths have 3 on the back, of course, and 3 on the front.
Yeah. Now, you said the three-toed sloths don't do well in captivity.
They don't.
Why is that?
So their diets are a lot more specific to what they can and can't eat. And in the wild, they eat the leaves of the sarcopia trees. Those only grow in Central and South America. We can't get any growing here. There have been efforts in southern parts of Florida and California, but they haven't had great success with that just yet. And to own a three-toed sloth, you'd basically have to own a private jet as well to fly you to and from the rainforest once a week so you could get those leaves. And leaves don't keep for very long, and so you'd have to make pretty frequent trips. And that's for the reason why there's not a whole lot of them.
Would not be fair to them.
Yeah. But the two-toed sloths, their diets can vary a lot more. So obviously, he's eating brown rice, shaved up sweet potatoes, dog food, stuff like that that's mixed into it. And they do really well on that.
But I think you probably got a little bit of a lot of animals right now.
Well, I can guarantee you those hairs are not sloth hairs because they don't have any type of shed.
Oh, they don't shed at
nope,
all?
They don't have any type of shed. Yeah, probably so.
It must have been the goats.
Yep. Because people could, he has kind of dark hair. Somebody can have a complete white shirt on, be petting him for an hour straight and have no hairs on him whatsoever. So they're kind of like hypoallergenic animals because they don't have any shed, they don't have any dander. And on top of that, they don't have any natural scent glands, musk glands, oil glands, or anything like that that makes them smell. So people think sometimes that they're going to smell because they see pictures of a wild sloth that has a lot of moss and algae and greenery all over them. But in captivity, they're not being rained on all day, every day. And so they don't have the ability to form that moss. They have the ability if we left them outside and let them get rained on over and over again. But they don't need that because they're not trying to hide from any type of, things that can be after them. But they're probably the cleanest animal we have on the entire farm. We don't have to do any type of whole lot of grooming or anything like that. The only time we ever have to clean them up is occasionally when they come down to use the bathroom. They scooch their booties down a little bit too far into their waste product, and sometimes they'll get just a little bit of poopy on their bottoms, but that's about the only type of cleaning up that we've got to do for them. And that's only once a week, and so it's pretty rare that that does happen.
Which are the dirtiest animals you have? We did notice the llamas like to roll around. Yeah, the llamas roll around a lot.
I would say pigs, but they don't really have a big mud hole in there or anything to be like rolling around in. But the llamas and alpacas, they do roll a lot, especially if you just put fresh bedding out,
Mm,
they
like
roll
that,
a
yeah.
lot in that. So probably, yeah.
Is that them trying to get their scent on it?
Well, so when they're smaller, they actually roll around like that because their little hairs before they have their first shearing, the little hairs that they have on the end split just right to where they grab all of the bedding and type of material that they're rolling around in. When they're babies in the wild, they would use that for camouflage, but they still do the same thing in captivity, and it's just something that's fun for them to do to roll around and get dirty and dusty and everything. And that's why the baby llamas and alpacas over there, they've got shavings all over them because they roll in it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Abby, you're gonna have to get mom and dad to bring you back to see Mr. Dash. Maybe.
You'll have to keep an eye on our page, and here in the next month or so, we should have, as long as she passes the final ambassador test and she does genuinely enjoy human interaction and actively seek it out, then she'll be on her way here.
How long after you guys get her do you allow people to meet her?
So we'll do a 30-day quarantine, and then we'll slowly, see if she's comfortable enough at that point to start then having some encounters. It'll be just little bits at a time. And so may have like 1 or 2 10-minute encounters a day. Well, she would, and Zoe and Dash both were the same way, that when we got them, they wanted to be held all the time. But it was by us. It was by people that they were, familiar with after those 30 days. But as long as they start to get familiar with other people. Chloe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had that name picked out right after we named Zoe.
So when we got one of our chihuahuas, the little girls who we got him from, they're like, will you name him Joey? Because ours is named Zoe, and he has a sister named Chloe. So Chloe, Zoe, and Joey. So
yeah. And we're all about the rhyming names and names that match and stuff like that. So we've got Flash and Dash, and then we'll have Zoe and Chloe.
Love it. And then love Rachel and Phoebe from Friends.
Yeah. And we've got Max and Ruby out there. They're the 2 bigger kangaroos.
Max and Ruby, you used to watch that when you were little.
Yep. And then we've got the 2 boys that just went to their new homes of the kangaroos. They were Tom and Jerry.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
So precious. I am wanting to get my youngest sister up here with us sometime because she loves sloths. And I know she will love nothing more than holding up baby, because she was so happy holding the big adult sloth. But if she gets to snuggle a baby,
it's a whole different experience.
Yes. She will definitely just be in heaven.
Well, it is right at time, so I'll go ahead and get him from you.
You guys want to say goodbye to him?
He's like, I see my human, I will grab him.
There we go.
Sweet. Oh my
I'll bring him over here so you can pet him as
Just,
well.
Yeah.
When we first get them, they're so small that they can't even wrap their legs around our torso. So this is how we carry them for the first little bit that we have them.
He is so precious. Now, is he looking up at you because he recognizes you?
No, not necessarily. So yeah. He, he can see a figure. Yes. He sees my head moving around.
I know you said his vision's pretty poor. It's just like he seems to have so much expression.
Yeah.
That it looks like he's looking at you like he really loves you.
Yeah.
Yes, you're so sweet, buddy.
But if you've ever
spending time with us.
If you've ever seen like an action movie that has a scene in it where there's some night goggle vision, that's kind of what they see.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see somebody, moving around in it, but you can't really distinguish who it is. You just see a shape of a person. Yeah. That's kind of what they see as well.
Oh my goodness. What do you guys have to say?
Thank you so
You're
much.
very
We
welcome.
appreciate it.
Good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, we'll get this moved out of the way and everything. They've ended now.
Well, that was pretty special.
Oh, good. I'm glad you guys liked it. Is Kevin out there?
Yeah, he's on the phone.
Oh, I guess this is good to turn off. I don't know how long we're supposed to be on it.